Hello and welcome to this presentation on glue ear in children and young people. The presentation has been produced by Peterborough Sensory and Physical Support Services. It is primarily aimed at children in the preschool to primary school bracket, but a lot of the information contained within will also be applicable to students at secondary school. This presentation will begin by looking at what glue ear is. It will then look at some of the signs and symptoms of glue ear, helping us to identify if a child that we're working with might be experiencing the condition. We'll look at how glue ear can affect the language and social and emotional development of children, and then we'll explore some of the possible treatments for glue ear. We'll explore different ways in which we can support a child in an educational setting, and then finally we'll look at some sources for additional information. In order to understand glue ear, we need to understand how the human hearing system works. Sound waves are collected by the outer ear. That includes the pinna, or the earlobe, and the ear canal, the tube that leads along to the eardrum. The eardrum is a thin piece of skin, a very thin membrane that vibrates when sound waves hit it. It separates the outer ear from the middle ear. The middle ear consists of three tiny bones, the malleus, the incus and the stapes. These are also known as the hammer, the anvil and the stirrup. The middle ear also has a connection to the back of the nose and the throat called the eustachian tube, and this tube allows air into the middle ear to equalise the pressure. The malleus, incus and stapes transmit the vibrations from the eardrum through to the inner ear, and the inner ear consists of the cochlea and the vestibular system. The cochlea is a spiral-shaped structure that's filled with fluid and lined with tiny hair cells. As the fluid inside moves due to the vibrations, these hair cells bend and generate electrical impulses that travel along the auditory nerve to the brain. The vestibular system is responsible for helping us to balance and keep our orientation. So the brain receives these signals from the cochlea and the vestibular system, and that allows us to hear and perceive our surroundings. Now we've seen how the hearing system works, let's have a look at how glue ear affects everything. Glue ear occurs when the middle ear fills up with fluid. This fluid builds up because the eustachian tube, that tube we talked about earlier that allows air to flow into the middle ear, becomes blocked or isn't working properly. This can be because of colds, allergies, ear infections, being around people who are smoking, or other genetic conditions. When this fluid builds up in the middle ear, it can compress against the eardrum, stopping it from vibrating properly. It also makes it more difficult for the sound waves to move from the eardrum through to the cochlea. And this is why glue ear affects hearing. So glue ear is a conductive hearing loss because it affects how sound is conducted from the eardrum through the small bones to the cochlea. On its own, glue ear generally results in a temporary, mild or moderate hearing loss. If glue ear happens in addition to an already existing sensory neural or permanent hearing loss, then the effects can be more severe, and this can result in a severe or even a profound level of hearing loss. This is known as a mixed hearing loss. If you'd like more information on glue ear and the causes of it, the NHS website has a fantastic video that explains the whole process. The links are on the screen here. This slide shows some interesting facts about glue ear. Especially interesting is how common it is. As it shows, the NDCS estimates that 1 in 5 preschool children will have glue ear at any one time, and that 8 out of 10 children will have experienced it before they reach the age of 10. Many things can contribute to glue ear, such as colds and flu, allergies, and even being around people who smoke. And children with cleft palate or genetic conditions such as Down syndrome may be more likely to get glue ear, as they often have smaller eustachian tubes. On the screen you can see an audiogram. An audiogram is a graph that shows the results of a hearing test. It measures how well an individual can hear different pitches and volumes of sounds. The horizontal axis shows the pitch, from very low pitch sounds up to very high pitch sounds. The vertical axis shows the volume, from quiet to very loud. The symbols on the graph show the quietest sounds that can be heard at each pitch. And in this example, the individual would be classed as having normal hearing because it's in the -10 to 20 decibel range. This audiogram shows the hearing test results of somebody with a mild hearing loss. We can see this because the quietest sounds that they can hear are between the 20 to 40 decibel range. Anything that is quieter than this, they would not be able to hear effectively. And we can see in this case that this is including some of the speech sounds. This would mean that somebody with a mild hearing loss might find it really difficult to follow conversations and speech. On this audiogram, we see somebody with a moderate hearing loss, and we can see that even more of the speech sounds that are used in everyday conversation are becoming inaccessible. So even a mild hearing loss can affect a child's ability to listen, their social and emotional development, and the development of their speech and language skills. And glue ear, even though it's commonly a temporary condition, can have an impact upon a child's communication and their ability to learn. The longer this condition persists, the greater the impact it can potentially have. We'll have a look at the impact on these three main areas of development in greater detail on the next slide. The bullet points on this page outline some of the challenges a child with glue ear may experience. A lot of language we learn is from incidental communication. We learn new words or phrases that our peers are using. We might develop our own understanding of a grammar form, for example, by hearing others use it and then copying them. So if a child is not accessing these interactions, their development can be affected, and their development of language and how to use it can become delayed. If the glue ear condition persists for a longer period, especially in younger children, it can result in errors with speech sound production, because the child can't hear the sounds clearly, so isn't able to copy them accurately. The child's speech may be more difficult to understand than similar-aged peers. As we mentioned earlier, through missing incidental language, the child's vocabulary may be smaller than expected for their age, and this would commonly include not knowing alternate words for an object. We also saw earlier how the condition can affect how the child hears the sounds that make up speech, and this can make learning phonics, a system that's purely based upon the speech sounds and their corresponding graphemes, extremely challenging. Social situations can become more difficult, as the child might not even be aware that somebody is speaking to them, and this could be perceived as them ignoring people. Even if the child does recognise that somebody is talking to them, it will be more difficult for them to perceive where that person is, and as a result of them not being able to quickly locate and look at the person speaking, important information can be missed, or their reactions to what is being said might be delayed. Because of all of these reasons, a child experiencing glue ear is going to find listening and understanding what's going on around them extremely challenging and tiring. It's not uncommon for them to exhibit some changes in behaviour as a result of this, and children might become more irritable or angry than would have usually been the case before that. They might start disengaging from or avoiding activities which they previously enjoyed, especially ones with a high level of social engagement. All of these factors can have an impact upon the child's self-esteem and confidence, especially if they are unaware of what is causing the sudden changes that they are experiencing. So we need to try and be aware of these changes, as they can be useful indicators for us, as we will start to explore on the following slide. This slide covers some of the things that we should keep an eye out for in regards to a child potentially having glue ear. This is not an exhaustive list, nor is it confirmation that glue ear is present if some of these are observed, but it can be a useful early indicator or a conversation starter with parents if some of these begin to happen with a child that you are supporting, especially if they weren't happening previously. So if you suspect that a child at your setting may be experiencing glue ear, then a conversation with the family is the ideal place to start. The family will then book an appointment with their GP or discuss with their health visitor if they have one. They will discuss the issues that the child has been experiencing. It's not uncommon at this point for a period of watchful waiting to be suggested. This is because glue ear is generally a temporary condition and it can sometimes clear up on its own if given a little bit of time. If the condition persists, the GP will usually refer the child for a hearing assessment at audiology, and this is where the child's hearing will be tested, and an audiogram like the ones we looked at earlier will be produced to show the level of hearing loss, if any, the child is experiencing. Audiology will also discuss potential treatment options with the family. One of the newer treatments, Otavent, is a drug-free and non-surgical autoinflation device which is now being prescribed for some children with glue ear. Essentially, it's a balloon. The balloon included in the kits are specially pressurized to open up the eustachian tube when inflated via the nose. This process allows the fluid associated with glue ear to safely drain away. The Otavent autoinflation device is only suitable for children who can blow their nose independently. The Otavent device inflates as the child breathes out through the nose, and the pressure from the special balloon helps to open up the eustachian tubes, allowing the fluid buildup to drain away and the pressure to equalize. These are sometimes used in the watchful waiting period. A bone conduction soft band like the one that's shown on the slide might be suggested as a possible treatment option. The soft band consists of three parts. The hearing aid, which consists of a microphone, a volume or vibration control and a battery drawer, a bone conduction unit, and the headband itself. When worn correctly, as shown in the picture, the microphone captures sounds which are transferred to the bone conduction unit. This then vibrates against the mastoid bone, and the sound vibrations are transmitted through the bones of the skull to the cochlea, avoiding the blocked middle ear and allowing improved access to sound. Another form of treatment is grommets. Grommets are tiny tubes that are inserted into the eardrum. This is done under surgery, which requires a general anaesthetic. The grommets allow air to pass through into the eardrum, keeping the pressure equal on either side. They will also allow some of the liquid trapped inside the eardrum to escape. The surgeon makes a tiny hole in the eardrum and then will insert the grommet into the hole. They usually stay in place for between 6 to 12 months and will then fall out on their own. But staff should keep an eye on children following a grommet surgery and speak to the family if the hearing appears to drop again. These treatments are currently not recommended by NICE, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, as treatments for glue ear, but some might be prescribed for associated conditions. For example, antibiotics may be prescribed to treat an infection related to the glue ear condition. So far, we've looked at what glue ear is, and we've looked at how it can impact the learning and development of the child. We've also explored some of the common treatments. Now we're going to explore how we as practitioners can support a child who has glue ear. And we're going to explore three areas of support: adapting the environment, adapting the communication methods we use, and thinking about the types of activities that we provide. Firstly, let's consider the learning environment. We want to provide an environment that helps the child to access as much information as possible, but this is often difficult due to external factors, as shown on the current slide. We should try to be aware of where external noise is coming from, and identify and remove distractions that are present in our teaching environments as much as possible during the times we're expecting the child to be actively listening. We'll look at how we can do this in an upcoming slide, but it could be as simple as closing doors and windows for the teaching element of a session. You can always open them up again once the independent activity has begun. Have a think for a second about your teaching environment and think about the sources of external sounds. How could you act to minimise that sound, even if only for short-term periods, to support the child when they are expected to listen? A child experiencing glue ear, or any child experiencing a hearing loss, will be required to use increased effort when they are listening, and this is for all of the reasons that are shown on screen. We as practitioners need to be aware of the challenges the child is facing when we are working with them. So how can we support the child with these challenges? This is by no means an exhaustive list, but hopefully it will give you an idea of the type of adjustments that we can make that will really help our children when we're expecting them to listen. Reducing background noise is key. The target voice should be at least 20 decibels louder than any background noise. And we can try and prevent external noise from coming into the classroom by closing doors and windows, as mentioned before. Also, using soft furnishings and carpets will help to dampen the noise levels down. Using visual aids and props to support language development and to help maintain attention of the children is really key. This can help a child who's not quite heard something understand the concept being discussed a lot clearer. Establishing listening rules and routines is really important too, enabling you to reduce the noise level of a classroom before you're about to start speaking. Positioning the child in an appropriate position is key. Children with a hearing loss will need to look at your face and see lip patterns, as this will help them to work out what's being said even if they can't clearly hear a speech sound. And linked to this, we need to make sure that rooms have adequate lighting to enable good visual access to your face. And we as teachers need to make sure that we are giving good access to our faces to our students. So not standing in front of windows, not speaking when our backs are towards them. Potentially, you might consider adding a sound field system to your room. A sound field comprises of a speaker, which is placed at the front of the room, and a lanyard microphone, which is worn by the practitioner. The sound field amplifies the speaker's voice and presents it from a constant location, wherever in the room the speaker might actually be. As we noted on the previous slide, the speaker's voice should be at least 20 decibels above any other noise, and a sound field can help to ensure that this is the case. It can also be beneficial for the other children in the class and can reduce vocal stress on the practitioner's voice. We might be able to loan a sound field system to a setting if it's something that you would like to explore. As well as considering changes to the environment, we should also think about the ways in which we can communicate with the child directly. And again, the tips on this slide should be considered the starting point for this. We want to gain the child's attention before we start speaking. We also want to do this when focusing their attention on other people in the class that may be talking. So for example, I use an eyes on tagline when I'm having a class discussion. So I've asked a question, the children have put their hands up, and I'll use eyes on Billy, and then everybody in the class will know that that's the person that they need to turn to look at. We should speak clearly with normal speed, intonation and rhythm. We don't want to exaggerate, shout or speak slowly, as this will change the way that the lips work in forming the sounds. Preferably, we should introduce new vocabulary in advance of teaching sessions. We should start with simple known language and then build upon this when introducing new vocabulary. Instructions should be given in short, clear form, and we want to support the learning with pictures, objects and demonstrations. Modelling what we want the children to give us is a really powerful way of teaching them and helping them to get over any gaps in language that there may be. When talking with the children, start with what the child has said and then expand upon it, repeating and correcting when necessary. For example, if a child said, "Cat eat bird," then you'd go, "Yes, the cat is eating the bird." And like we talked about earlier with that incidental learning, we are slowly layering over the correct form that we want the children to repeat. And when using more complex language, always give lots of examples. Use context to support the child's understanding. And throughout all of this, regularly check the understanding of the child. Make sure we've not got somebody sat nodding at us who isn't understanding what's going on in the room. Activities that support the act of listening through the use of key phrases, visual supports, repetition and modelling are also important, especially with a condition that changes and fluctuates like glue ear. Listening activities like the listening walks introduce new sounds and also give us an opportunity to label them, to provide vocabulary. Games using ready, steady, go can be built into all sorts of play activities. But remember to change the gap before we get to go, so the children really have to listen for that key word. Musical instruments are always popular, and matching a sound to a particular instrument, playing musical statues, etc. Really good activities. Again, when we're talking to children, we should be using those short, clear sentences, using the pictures, the objects, the demonstrations. So even if they're not able to hear really clearly what those instructions are, they're having them modelled to them so they can follow what's going on. Games like Simon Says, where instructions have got to be followed. Again, these can be supported visually at first. So you could have a sequence of pictures telling children what they need to do, and then gradually, as the language becomes more familiar, you reduce the reliance on those pictures. And visual and repetitive stories or games, the Gruffalo I absolutely adore because of the use of repetition. Oh no, it's the Gruffalo, and all the children join in. Those kind of activities are absolutely priceless. But again, throughout all of this, we need to make sure we're checking understanding and getting the children to show us that they're following what's going on and what they are expected to do. So we need to start with what the child has said and then expand upon it, repeating when necessary, correcting when necessary. Cat lick hand. That's right, the cat is licking its paw. What we've done here is we've introduced an additional piece of vocabulary in the correct contents. We've introduced a new word to the child. That child then needs regular opportunities to practice the use of that word. And using visual aids and props to support this language development is a really good way of doing it. So using pictures maybe of a lion or a bear, or using a small world scenario, will give him the chance to explore how a lion has a paw as well. The bear has paws. We should narrate and describe the activities that children are taking part in. We are the source of a very rich language and vocabulary. The child's vocabulary is developing. So with us narrating and explaining and describing what the child is doing, we are overlearning all the time these new words, these new pieces of vocabulary. And as we talked about earlier with that incidental learning, some of that is going to stick, and gradually that child's vocabulary is going to extend and extend and extend. We need to make sure that home is informed about the activities that we've offered to enable them to replicate and continue, and also to use the same language and the same vocabulary that we've been introducing in our setting. If we're expecting a vocal response from the child, make sure we allow time for the child to think about their speech before giving their answer. Let them form it, let them think about their grammatical forming from everything that they've learned. And throughout all of this, again, go back to checking understanding. Is the child understanding what we're asking them, or are they just copying and mimicking those around us? This slide is possibly aimed more at older children, but we do need to be aware that care needs to be taken when using ICT to support teaching. We should provide transcripts or display subtitles when appropriate. Although, as the example on this slide shows, we need to make sure that the subtitles are accurate. We may need to pause the video to allow note taking. Some students, especially younger students, may need somebody to take notes for them. We need to make sure we are not talking when looking at or writing on the whiteboard. This means that our lip patterns are not accessible for students, and it also means that our voice is aiming the wrong direction. And if we're filming videos ourselves, we should aim to use captioning apps whenever possible. So in summary, we should be aiming to reduce the listening load placed upon our children. We should be using a multi-sensory approach to teaching, which supports the current level of understanding and encourages the development of new vocabulary. To reduce the impact of fatigue, sessions should be broken up into listening times and activity times. Ideally, routines and strategies can be developed to support this, like the eyes-on approach that I mentioned earlier. If older students are expected to take notes or provide written responses, we need to allow time for this when they don't also need to be listening to additional information. And ideally, we should be introducing new vocabulary and concepts ahead of the lesson, so that the child is already aware of the key language that will be required. Obviously, it would be impossible to cover everything relating to glue ear and how best to support children experiencing the condition in a short presentation like this. So on the following slides, there are some organisations and links that will be useful if you want to gather additional information on the condition of glue ear. Here are some more links. The cartoon Ninja Phoenix and DJ and the Gloopy Glop is a great way of starting a glue ear discussion with children and young people. It was written by a young person who is experiencing glue ear themselves. Thank you for watching, and I hope you found the presentation useful. It would be greatly appreciated if you would use the link shown on the slide to complete a short evaluation of this training. Thank you.